live with Hui Hui and Tean.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi everyone, we are here today because the AGC sent us letter yesterday.
That's all you're going to say?
Oh, I was cross-examined from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on 25th January 2023, and I will have to be cross-examined again on 22nd February again at 9 a.m. Also, I went through the cross-examination with my 3 children. So all my 3 children went through court hearing. They go to court instead of going to infant care or child care. And so from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., I breastfed my baby at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Then wait for the hearing to start at 9 a.m. Then after 1 hour, I fed again from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Then I go through the cross-examination again from 10 to 11. From 11 to 12. Yeah.
Okay, Tean, since yesterday, everybody talking about this thing about one MP join one big company, then a lot of people say conflict of interest lah. Then then the company, I think they changed the job title on it. Yeah. So as a lawyer, you graduated from Cambridge, right? I understand.
Yes.
Yeah. So as a lawyer, I'm sure you studied conflict of interest, right? So can you tell us something about your take on what's happening? This thing about change the job title and
You see, conflict of interest is a very commonsensical concept, right? You don't have to be a lawyer to know if you are potentially in a conflict of interest situation. From what I read, the PAP put out a statement, said, last year, Tin Pei Ling had informed the party about her new job, and they, based on what she told them, they didn't think that there was a conflict of interest. But now, after the huge uproar, they have asked her again and realized that there could potentially be a conflict of interest because she would have to be in regular contact with maybe government ministers and all that. Now, I made a very short post in my Telegram channel yesterday, and I said, this is such a wonderful illustration of people's power. Hey, Tin Pei Ling was forced to change her position in Grab not because of PAP's own self, check own self, okay? But because people saw through the potential dangers, all right? And now the PAP has had to come out with this statement. Tin Pei Ling has had to change position. But I realized today from messages that actually Grab already has a director for corporate development. Does it mean that now there will be 2 directors of corporate development? But my friends, let me reiterate again. How often have we heard from the PAP, look here, we don't need people to govern us. We own self, check own self. And how many times, it has happened, right? And I was just remarking to someone today, the PAP seems to be shooting themselves in the foot every single day these days. All right? Let's not recount the incidents. But, hey, if I am the PAP and I had questioned Tin Pei Ling last year about her new job, don't you think that it's commonsensical you would ask her what her job entails instead of just relying on what she tells you? First of all, the title of her job, Director of Public Policy or something like that, was it? Something public and policy. Would you not put 2 and 2 together to surmise that she would be in touch with government officials and ministers? So, kudos Singaporeans, I say well done, all right? And I think, people need to speak up, be fearless, and hold the government to account.
Hui Hui, we all know you are not a lawyer. You never even go to university, right? So, what do you have to say about this conflict of interest thing?
First of all, Singaporeans are the one who chose to continuously vote for the PAP since way before independence. In Singapore, we have the same government, the same political party since way before independence. So just think of how much the brainwashing, the propaganda, the machinery that the government has used against almost anybody who even just raised questions against government policies. And Singaporeans are also the one who chose to have people who are in parliament who are there just part-time, not full-time, just part-time, once a week for the Meet the People session. And then it's only 4 times a week. On the last week, they will not be there. Not only that, the Singaporeans are the one who allow these people to hold numerous directorships and not be accountable for anything. And they don't have to be transparent on how much income they are earning on top of their members of parliament, their monthly allowance, on top of their ministerial salary. So Singaporeans are the one who chose this.
Can I add on to that? One of my biggest grouses about conflict of interest is this. You know our Speaker of Parliament, right? He can be a CEC member of the PAP. Can you believe that? Yeah? That means he's effectively involved in the running of the party as well, because the CEC is the Central Executive Committee, right? I mean, I find that astounding. You know what happens in the British Parliament? Of course, the Speaker has to be a member of Parliament. But once he is elected Speaker, he renounces any ties with his party, all right? So that he can be totally impartial. But when it comes to election time, you know, they have an understanding, the political parties have an understanding that he will not be opposed, all right, in the elections. But, you know, and here all the time, people are complaining about Tan Chuan Jin's conduct of proceedings in Parliament. They're saying, why are you shutting down the opposition? Why are you shutting down Leong Man Wai? Why are you shutting down the WP? All right? It doesn't lend itself to a perception of impartiality. I am sorry to say that. Yeah? And it is because the PAP can come to Singaporeans and tell them, oh no, there's no conflict of interest if Tan Chuan Jin is Speaker of Parliament and yet he is in the CEC. I leave it to you to judge for yourself. All right? I think this Tin Pei Ling incident is a very good first step in Singaporeans finally telling the PAP enough is enough. And I hope people from now on will scrutinize the party even more and point out instances where MPs are really acting in conflict of interest.
I think this is not the first time whereby the government simply asks someone to change the job title just because the person got slammed for it. Like, for example, back in 2013, when the AGC was involved for the first defamation letter that I received, they actually declared that they threatened to sue me for defamation, but they didn't actually sue me for defamation. That was back in 2013 when I was 21 years old. Now it's 2023 and the AGC is still sending me letter, and it has been like 11 years of continuous and persistent political persecution in Singapore. And the AGC simply shut down the whole statutory board, which was known as the CPE back then. Then in 2014, when we protested against the CPF minimum sum, they simply changed the name to call it CPF retirement sum now. So after they charged all of us in court, then now they call it the CPF retirement sum. So people will not search for CPF minimum sum, and people will not realize that actually long ago, there are already people who spoke up against CPF system and say that the government needs to return us our money. And it's not just about returning us our CPF money. It's also returning us the interest that they have earned using our CPF. They need to return us the returns as well. And just like how the CPF system, they say that when we sell our HDB, we need to give back accrued interest. The government didn't give us the accrued interest that they have earned for the numerous years whereby they only pay us 2.5%. And yesterday the AGC sent me letters saying that I need to pay them like 5 to 6% interest on top of the $22,000. So they are now asking for about $25,000.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I also want to add this. You know, when you file a writ in court, all right, you can ask for interest on the claim. And the interest given these days by the courts is 5.33% a year. All right? But why is it that CPF only gives you 2.5% a year? Now, think about it. You have this sum of money sitting in CPF every year, all right? Inflation now is how many percent? 5%? 6%? It means that every year your money is sitting there, you are losing money, right? You are losing to inflation.
Okay, Hui Hui. I think yesterday or day before yesterday, if you read the newspaper that the subscription is, I think, plus people one, okay. The big news was, in the Forward Singapore conversation, they talked to more than 14,000 people, and then they come up with 3 main themes. So the next stage is they're going to talk to some more people to figure out in these 3 main themes, okay, what exactly they're going to try to do to solve the problem of these 3 main themes. Now I know you don't subscribe to newspaper, right? So you know what are these 3 main themes?
What are they?
Okay, means you don't know lah. Okay. The 3 main themes after 14,000 people being engaged in the Forward FG is number 1, fairness. Number 2, inclusiveness. Number 3, giving back. Okay, I shall repeat. 3 main themes: fairness, inclusiveness, giving back. I read the very long articles in this newspaper, and of course, when you talk about fairness, inclusiveness, giving back, a lot of things they're talking about jobs, jobs need to retrain, jobs need to reskill, and all that. Okay, but what I found very strange was, Tean, there was not a single word mentioned after 14,000 people went through this exercise. And all this about fairness and inclusiveness and giving back and all this right out about jobs, not a single word talk about competition from non-Singaporeans, right, with Singaporeans for jobs.
Exactly. Don't you think that if you want to talk about fairness, the number 1 priority should be fairness for Singaporeans in the job market? And I'm telling you, there is no level playing field. That playing field these days is tilted heavily in favor of the foreigners. All right? And I think in PV, Tean, more than anyone else in the whole of Singapore, has brought out the statistics. And the statistics are so disastrous. All right? I wouldn't even try to repeat them here. They talk about job growth all these years. Tean has comprehensively shown how less than 10% of those job growth go to true Singaporeans, true blue Singaporeans. Yeah? And you tell me how is it fair? You tell me how is it fair that a new citizen, 30 and above, does not have to serve NS. But that true blue Singaporean has to serve NS and has reservist liabilities till he is, I think, 40 now. In my days, my reservist liability was till 50. You tell me that is not tilting the playing field against the true blue Singaporean? Yeah? Where is the fairness in that? Why is Lawrence Wong not pursuing that? I am sure people in Forward Singapore would have brought that up. That is why, I don't treat this Forward Singapore conversation seriously. I think it is a joke, all right? There are far more important issues. They don't want to talk about it, but they label it under 3 generic categories: fairness, inclusiveness, and giving back. My friends, let's talk about housing. Let's talk about jobs. Yeah, let's talk about cost of living. Aren't those the most important things for Singaporeans? Housing. Aren't the young upset that public housing is now way beyond that? They have to wait how many years to get a flat? And you know what can happen in those intervening years when people are waiting? Relationships can break down. And then people are starting families later in life. What does that affect? It affects your total fertility rate, doesn't it? You know, Singaporeans are producing less and less of themselves, and yet our population keeps expanding. Why? Because we keep importing foreigners.
And Vivi, in the parliamentary sitting last Monday and Tuesday, they had, I think, a lot of debate about HDB, okay? And the conclusion, as usual, is that HDB is affordable. You say HDB flat, right? You got anything to say?
So the AGC questioned me over my HDB flat as well. Then questioned me over where I stay specifically as well. Then after that, I declared in court, I was like, oh, the HDB is 200k for a 3-room flat in Singapore. And it is still under loan. Then they asked me how much, I'm like, 200k. And it has to be paid for 25 years. So in the letter from the AGC yesterday, the AGC told me, I need to pay the money or else there will be interest and they will keep sending me letters forever. And I was thinking, if Singaporeans can pay for a house that they are living in for 25 years or even longer for people who actually who are too old to get a flat, then what is the AGC sending me letter for the rest of my life going to be? And just because I pay the AGC right now, does it mean the AGC will stop harassing my family and I? I think the Prime Minister nephew has answered it very perfectly, is that the AGC will never stop their persistent and continuous political persecution against me. So I just have to continue. And the issue about HDB for a lot of people is that there are actually a lot of people who lost their houses and they lost their deposit because they, like what was said, they break up in between. And this number was actually published online as well. The newspaper, the mainstream media published it. And this youngster, they say that, okay, just because they already lost their relationship, they still have to lose the money, then they have to work even longer to get back the money. And for those who actually have the money to get a second flat immediately, they face the penalty of having a delay application. That means they can't actually subscribe to the HDB and apply for it immediately. They have a waiting period of about a year or even more. So they say that just because of this, immediately I find another person to get married, I cannot marry them. I mean, you just look at how long does it take for the law minister to marry his second wife after divorcing his first wife? Was it more than a year or was it just a few months? If the law minister a few months can marry someone else, then why other Singaporeans cannot do the same? Is that fairness? Is that inclusiveness? Please leave your comments down below. Share this video. And therefore, this is called the authoritarian rule of law in Singapore.
Okay, Lim Tean, last week, wow, big news in Singapore about big quarrel in Malaysia, you know, because the development minister of Malaysia said something like, oh, we need to learn from the best in the world on public housing, and that is Singapore's HDB, okay? And Johor in Unity government MP also said, oh yeah, we must learn from the best, Singapore HDB. And then the Malaysian opposition, it seems, was up in arms, no, and said, no, please don't use public housing to politicize the issue. The former government has been doing a very good job already. Now, Lim Tean, you're an expert on HDB, right? You have anything to say about this that's going on in Malaysia, no?
You know, I will put it this way. Public housing is one of the most important things in a modern society. And for Singapore, I would place it as maybe one of the 2 top issues. I think the HDB, when it first started, and well, you know, into the 80s, did a very good job. Public housing was affordable, and the policies were all tailored towards that. But what happened in the 90s and after that was where our HDB policy has gone seriously wrong. Especially this idea of having land costs factored into the pricing of flats. And you know, Goh Chok Tong's asset enhancement basically adulterated the entire system. And HDB lost its original mission. Alright? And it is very sad. I no longer say that Singapore has the best public housing policies in the world. No. Alright? I have been reading a lot about other countries. I will tell you, Austria has an awesome public housing policy. Every public housing development in Vienna, you know what they do? They tender out for architectural competition. So much so that today in Vienna, even their public housing has become visitors' attraction. Alright? And 50% of every development has to be devoted to green development. You know, here, what have we been experiencing in the last decade? Decaying lease. Alright? People getting frightened once their property goes beyond 40 years. And then you have the debacle over the Ang Mo Kio SIRS, alright, which Zihian can expound for days. Yeah? So there is no end to it. And then now you have the audacity of the PAP challenging Leong Man Wai and PSP. Let's have a public debate. I say bring it on, bring it on. You know, you had their PAP MPs in Parliament fumbling. I saw one MP, I don't even remember his name. He's so insignificant, I don't even remember his name. He was like, you know what he was like? He was like this reindeer caught, yeah, with bright lights in his eyes. Yeah, he challenged Leon Pereira. And then when Leon countered and asked him questions, he was totally lost. And then you know what happened? Tan Chuan Jin has to come in and stop the proceedings and say, let's get on. You know, my friends, yeah, the PAP wants to debate the opposition on HDB. I say anytime, bring it on.
Wow, you're right, Tean. I saw this, you know, the public debate. I think one MP said something like, oh, the fact that there are people, you know, queuing up to buy a HDB video flat, this is affordable, okay?
Wait, before we say anything, we need to make sure that people know that there are internet brigade who are trying to compare apple with oranges instead of apple and orange. Apple and orange, okay? There are PAP internet brigade down there comparing apple and orange instead of apple and apple. So the thing is, in Singapore, public housing are what about 80% of Singaporeans are living in. Compared in other countries, 80% of their population will live in private properties. So do not compare Singapore public housing with overseas public housing, which is actually equivalent to rental flats in Singapore. We need to make sure that first. And in other countries, their private properties are like freehold for the people. Yet in Singapore, we only have 99 years lease. And now we have like 50 years, 30 years lease. It's getting shorter and shorter. And then after that, the government is locking up our CPF, having it MediShield Life, saying that Singaporeans are living longer and longer. So you sell us housing, telling us that we are living shorter and shorter. Then you sell us compulsory national insurance scheme, telling us that we are living longer and longer. So what are you talking about? It's like how many wives you have. Just because you got 2 wives, right, doesn't mean everybody got 2 wives, you know. You need to make up your mind. You're talking to your first wife or second wife. In Singaporeans, people are struggling to get married, which is why HDB are confiscating the money that people have put in for their public housing. All people want is just to have a roof over their head. And yet, just because you live in private properties, and you have a few private properties, and then you get chased out by your wife, you still got a place to sleep in. Do you know that a lot of people, after they quarrel, they got no place to sleep in? And for those people who have no choice, not only they don't have public housing, they go to rental flats. And then after that, they get quarrel with their rental mates. Then they get chased out of the rental flats. They have to stay at the roadside. They have to sleep under MRT tracks. And now you build spikes below the MRT tracks for these people. Is this how a so-called fair and inclusive government is going to be? do you include this lower income into your policies when you are thinking of it? Or do you only include people who are like multi-millionaire and have 2 wives in your policies, Mickey?
Well, maybe you seem to have some obsession with this number of wives thing. Never mind. Okay, let's move on. Tean, 2 days ago the news came out. If you get COVID-19, medical treatment will no longer be free from the 1st of April. And for COVID-19 tests, also no longer free. Do you think, what do you think what are the implications of the government all of a sudden announcing that, if you fall sick due to COVID-19, the medical treatment won't be free anymore?
You see, I think this is ridiculous. Why for the first 3 years was the policy that the government will pay for your medical treatment, and now all of a sudden you are on your own? Why? I don't understand the rationale. I mean, Singaporeans have been very obedient. They have been taking the vaccine, all right? Yeah? So, what is the difference now? I'll say this, and I have said it in previous videos with Hui Hui. All over the world now, the world is waking up to what all these big pharmas like Pfizer and Moderna and all that have been doing. All the shenanigans, I would put it this way. And this is going to be a big issue going forward. Yeah, I am not joking. You can't cover fire with a blanket all the time, all right? Sooner or later, the blanket is going to be consumed by the fire. Yeah? And I'm telling you, I've been saying this for the last 6 months. You are going to see in the years going ahead massive litigation, all right? By people, outraged people. Even the Japanese now have woken up. I saw a video recently where frankly they are fed up and they are starting to sue everyone concerned. Yeah? Well, we will see what happens in Singapore. So I don't think it is fair. I think the government has a duty to keep paying for people's COVID treatment.
No, I think...
Wait. Tean, are you saying that I'm a very obedient Singaporean? I take my vaccination, first shot, second shot, okay, right? Then I take my booster, right? Then after that, I still get COVID-19 and I have to pay myself.
Well, which is why I say it is a ridiculous change in policy, right? What is the rationale for it? I don't understand. Why are Singaporeans now penalized after following all the government's instructions for the first 3 years?
Because Singaporeans voted for such a government.
Or does it mean that after the vaccination, after taking all the vaccinations, there is a realization now that actually more people are going to fall ill because of COVID, and the government can no longer afford to fund their treatment?
Okay, Hui.
No, first thing, people who take the COVID vaccines, when they get down with COVID, they actually got more serious illnesses. And there are a lot of mothers, because I went through the past 5 years of pregnancy, there are a lot of mothers who lost their baby because they took the vaccines. Okay, so like their heart pump faster, then they just lose the baby, especially in the first 3 months. That's why the first 3 months, how many people who take the vaccine got miscarriages? Yeah, these are not published statistics. But when you talk to people, right, you know that the number of babies actually decreased. So the number of babies decreased because there are more people taking the vaccines. Because it happened that these mothers are mothers who took the vaccine, not mothers who didn't took the vaccines. Then there's another thing is that during the COVID period, when the government say that people have 5 days MC or 3 days MC or long period of staying at home hospitalization leave, if they are going to be down with cough or flu or COVID-like symptoms, people stop going to the doctors because they need to work. There was a period of time that the government actually published by themselves on mainstream media saying that people are no longer falling ill. They just get down with COVID. Is that true? So now they are trying to say that if you take the COVID vaccine, you suffer from COVID vaccine injuries, you have to pay by yourself. And if you take the vaccine and you suffer from COVID, you have to pay again by yourself. So why do you still take the vaccine in the first place? And just because people are not taking the vaccines, the Singapore government is now saying that I'm the leader of the unvaccinated, asking people not to take the vaccine. Hello, people are not taking the vaccine because they realize it is no longer effective, not because of me. Do you think I'm so powerful? And the AGC go to court saying that I have a very prominent social media account. What do you mean by prominent? You should go and look at the mainstream media distributing their numbers and inflating their circulation number. That's more prominent. Imagine the kind of effect that they have on our ecosystem by burning away all the newspaper instead of giving it to pet owners. Why did the SPH do this kind of thing? And why is the AGC not charging the SPH? Imagine those people who pump their money into SPH shares and then lost the money after that. How do you compensate this kind of shareholders? And yet, the AGC is not charging these people, not charging the 6 corrupted Keppel cases as well, and they are going after me because they think that I'm the leader of the unvaccinated. No, you shouldn't be thinking this way. You mean nobody trusts the law minister? You mean people don't listen to the law minister? Don't you have faith in your own law minister? Leave your comments down below.
Hui Hui, you may be more powerful than you have so modestly described yourself. You keep calling yourself as the leader of the unvaccinated.
No, it's the AGC keep calling me that.
Okay, whatever.
You need to tell the AGC stop calling me that.
Okay. So you are not the leader of the unvaccinated, okay?
Okay, dear AGC,
but
I'm not the leader of the unvaccinated.
Do you know, every day the Ministry of Health website publishes a statistic called the up-to-date, vaccination. Okay, that means those people who have already done the requirement in order to be determined up to date. Okay, he has been dropping, right? And as of yesterday, he has dropped to 47% only. That means only 47% of the eligible population, right, is up to date on their vaccination. So I don't need to say anything more. I think you are truly the leader of the unvaccinated. And Hui Hui, you are 30 years old. You have 3 children in 4 years. Were you trying to tell us that you managed your 3 children in 4 years at the age of 30 because you're unvaccinated?
And therefore, unvaccinated people are probably more fertile.
Oh, okay. Your husband here or not? Can I just confirm? Mr. Tan, where are you? Oh, as usual, Mr. Tan ran away with the other 2 children. Okay, never mind. Tean, 3 days ago, okay, in Parliament as usual, right? So one MP asked, hey, can you give us the statistics about elderly Singaporean, how much they're earning, right? So it came out, and this is shocking. Listen to this. Nearly 7 out of 10 working Singaporeans aged 65 and above earn less than $2,500.
You know something? I have always said this, and I credit Tean for uncovering this. And PV has been at the forefront. Singaporeans, listen to this again. 35% of our working population, are either unemployed or take home less than $2,400 a month. 35%. But yet we are the most expensive country in the world. My friends, 2,400 is not a world-class wage, all right? Especially in the most expensive country in the world. You know, I am seeing Singaporeans think that the government is doing a wonderful job. No, the government cannot be doing a good job when your salaries are so, unconnected to the cost of living. And I think Singaporeans ought to start asking themselves, why is my job paying me so little, but yet I am living in the most expensive country in the world? Why is the government not controlling the cost of living? Why is the government not controlling prices? Look at housing. They talk about, Lee Hsien Loong made a Facebook post that day and said, we are confident of stemming the huge increase in HDB prices. But why did they allow that to even happen in the first place? Why? is because, my friends, for the last 40, 45 years, the PAP has been talking about free market. Yeah? Free market this, free market that. Oh, sorry, we can't control because this is a free market. As I've always said, that is total nonsense. There is no such thing as a free market without government regulation. Yeah? These are things the government can control, but refuses to control. But yet, at the same time, Singaporean wages have not increased significantly, substantially, but actually have stagnated and even gone backwards.
Hui Hui, because you did not participate in the vaccination lottery, you missed out on a lot of money. No? Do you know that 3 persons got $225,000 each under the vaccination injury assistance program? Right? You didn't participate in lottery, you don't have. Do you know that 1,168 serious adverse effects after vaccination? And of course, a total of 17,741 adverse events were reported on COVID-19. So you didn't participate in lottery, one cent would not have. Do you regret?
There are a lot of people who get vaccine injuries and they are not compensated. 就是讲说，很多人打了这个疫苗，最后呢，他们有病，可是政府根本没有赔钱。然后不要紧，现在新加坡政府讲说，如果你打了疫苗，你还是中这个病毒的话，你要自己付钱。If you take the vaccination and then you get the virus, you get COVID after that, you have to pay your own money. 这样子，你为什么还要打疫苗 ？Why should you still take the vaccine？ 然后不要紧，新加坡的政府跟你讲说，你得病是因为你已经有病了。When you get some kind of illness, the government say you already have underlying condition. So what is the government trying to do? To remove all the blame? 所以政府是不是在推卸责任？政府如果这样子做是对还是错 ？Never mind. And the government say that, well, at least we are a government with national insurance scheme to protect the healthcare of Singaporeans. And that if you are ever hospitalized, you've got MediSave, you've got MediFund, you've got MediShield Life. When the government implement MediShield Life, they implement it for the whole life, wanting it to be as long as possible because Singaporeans are living longer. 所以政府推荐这种医疗保健，讲说哦，我们要永久还到你死。为什么？他讲新加坡人已经越活越久了。But when they come up with housing scheme, it is from 99 years to 50 years to 30 years because a lot of people are dying early. You don't need a house for so long. 所以他卖你物质的时候，他跟你讲哦，你不需要99年，50年就够了，30年就够了，因为新加坡人的命哦是越活越短。所以到底我们的命是越活越长还是越活越短 ？Then never mind. It's like people 16 years old, 18 years old need to serve NS. They need to hold a gun and they are treated as adult. But they cannot vote. You have to wait until you are 21 years old to vote. Why is that so? So you are telling me that you are handling a gun to a kid who is 16 or 18 years old? Is this why there are so many guys dying inside NS, dying for our national service, and yet foreigners don't even need to come here to serve NS, to serve reservists? Is this how the government is talking? 所以他讲说，新加坡人16岁、18岁就要去服兵役，可是呢，他讲说你要21岁才可以投票。所以新加坡人到底16、18岁是成熟了还是还没有成熟？如果还没有成熟，你为什么把一把枪拿给小孩子拿？是不是就是因为你这样子把枪拿给小孩子，所以才在里面有这样多无辜的小男孩死亡？And there are internet brigades telling me I shouldn't care about national service because I don't need to serve NS. Hello, then can you file a petition? Tell them my children don't need to serve NS?
OK， 林健，哇，国会啊，讲废话的人很多嘞。有一个部长说这个要英文要读出来啊。Minister said 70% of HDB BTOs are affordable at the median income, household income of $8,400. Well, what is the minister saying?
The minister is saying that out of 100% of the house that they are selling, 70% are actually affordable to Singaporean. 所以新加坡政府卖给新加坡人的物质，只有78%是 OK 啦，还买得起的。
You know-
还有38%是根本买不起的，30% are totally unaffordable.
You know something? I refuse to be engaged in all these discussions about numbers. Okay? You know, you can present an argument that will turn black into white. Alright? So everyone can come up with their own arguments. To me, the best evidence that HDB is unaffordable, last year there was a survey that showed that 60% of Singaporeans no longer felt that they could afford property. Alright? And many young Singaporeans felt that going ahead, they would have to rent or even share property. Now, when 60% of that survey says that property is unaffordable, that tells me the majority of the population don't think that HDB is affordable. Alright? It is as simple as that. Okay? No argument that Desmond Lee comes out with or Sim Ann comes out with, you know, I think will change people's perception. Alright? So, unless there is a dramatic change in policy, and then we do a proper survey, and Singaporeans say, oh, actually HDB now is very reasonably priced. Alright? I don't see them saying that. And in fact, you know, when I take public transport and I speak to people, the number one issue is property prices, and people are unhappy. Well, if the PAP want to delude themselves and SNT, their mouthpiece, want to keep bombarding Singaporeans with propaganda saying that property is affordable, but you know, Singaporeans are now rising up, and Singaporeans are not so gullible anymore. And Singaporeans don't just believe what the mainstream media reports. Alright? And this is something, my friends, I believe no matter how much propaganda there is, it will be not effective. You know why? Because people live through the experience. I mean, you ask yourself, can I actually afford $700,000-$800,000 to go and buy a HDB apartment?
So the Singapore government now has this propaganda machinery that is coming out to say, if you cannot afford $1 million HDB, then don't buy it, and say that housing is continuously being affordable to Singaporean. 讲新加坡人没有这样大的头，不要带这样大的帽。现在是你的物质贵就是贵，人家买不起就是买不起。如果人家买得起，人家早就去买物质、做爱、生孩子了。新加坡有这样子做吗 ？Why is our total fertility rate still one of the world lowest? And why is it that during this period of COVID pandemic, other countries have baby booms, but in Singapore, people are not reproducing?
Anyway, I hope that the PAP continue to delude themselves that housing is affordable and that their mouthpiece keeps, you know, propagating that public housing is affordable. Let them go and delude themselves, and the results will be known at the next general elections.
Recently, the HDB made history, you know. For the first time in the history of Singapore, the HDB has started selling 3-room HDB flats at a lease of 50 years. And Vivi, I know you're very poor, right? But if you find a 99-year lease not available, would you buy a 50-year lease HDB flat because it's
When
cheaper?
you are a Singaporean who is desperate enough, there are Singaporeans who have no choice but to buy this 50 years lease, but to buy the 30 years lease, and to even sleep under the train tracks just because they quarrel with their mates in the rental flats. But is this how a fair and inclusive society is going to be? Is this how we are going to treat our fellow Singaporeans? And the government has so much resources, and yet the government is not willing to help lower income Singaporeans. Why is this so? It's like the AGC wants money, right? You want money? You can go and sue the corrupted 6 capital cases. But you say that there are no evidence to say they are corrupted. Hello, they already announced the whole world that these 6 Singaporeans are corrupted, okay? So why is the AGC not taking action? Are they fair? Not fair. What kind of court is this?
Anyway, I hope people who are watching this video will go and watch the 3-part video I made the other day on TikTok, in which I slammed Indrani Raja's pathetic statement in Parliament. Alright? And I was teaching her how the CPIB can easily get the evidence to convict these 6 people. So please have a look at my video. Part 2 of my video actually has gone viral. Yeah? So have a look.
And the Prime Minister brother himself has also posted online about the specific evidence that the AGC can look into. Since the Prime Minister is so free to sue his own nephew, why did the AGC not go and read this kind of document that has been posted online, since the AGC said they are reading whatever is posted online? So you didn't see that these 6 people have already admitted they are corrupted? Did you not see that SPH admitted that they inflate their circulation numbers? So why are you not sending POFMA to them? Why are you not arresting all these people? Are you a fair government? Do you think people will think that your system is just? What kind of system is this?
Tean, did you make a TikTok video about what the minister said about SPH? Because the minister said, oh, we will still give SPH $180 million a year for the next 5 years, because it's about the readership and the reach, okay, and not about the it's not the number of circulation now, okay. So what's your take on this? That readership and reach, what do you do with subscription?
I thought that was the most ridiculous statement from Josephine Teo in Parliament. I don't understand. She's saying that circulation has nothing to do with reach. I would have thought there was a great correlation between the two, right? And in the TikTok video I made, when the SMT scandal first surfaced, I said that there should be an immediate commission of inquiry. Why? Very simple. Because SMT has a monopolistic position in Singapore on the media. Alright? And you know, Shanmugam was telling Singaporeans, oh, mainstream media and the public must develop this mutual trust. How do you trust a media that reports fake figures for its circulation? Not only that, there was a crime there. Which the police till today and AGC till date refused to investigate. Alright? And you know what was the funny thing? Josephine Teo in Parliament can say, oh, we have done our investigation and we are going to continue funding. Now, in my video, I asked Josephine Teo to assure Singaporeans that not a single cent will be spent on SMT until all the facts are clarified. Yet, in a matter of 3-4 weeks, the government claims that it has done its investigations. Will it share its investigations with Parliament, with the public, so that everyone can contribute to the debate? You know, on this again, I must say, I am disappointed with the performance of the opposition in Parliament. The opposition should not accept these blanket statements without critical analysis. The sad thing, my friends, is that in our country, the press is not the critical press. The press is just a mouthpiece. You never see any critical analysis, all right? And so I say it is shocking. Singaporeans should not be funding this media that has not been honest about its own circulation figures, certainly not to the tune of 180 million a year. You know, my friends, the government spends not even 150 million or thereabouts on Comcare, all right? Monies it pays out to those very low income people or people who are not working. There are a substantial number in our society. And every year, government's funding of that is only about 150 million. I hope I'm right. It's about 150 million or it's even less than that. And yet, yeah, we are spending 180 million on a media. Monopolistic position cannot even survive on its own, you know. Yeah, it has to come cap in hand, begging for money.
Han Hui, how much money do you have in your CPF account?
Also, the AGC accepted that I sent them the past 10 years of my CPF statement. And now the AGC is saying that I should ask my husband to pay on behalf of the other 5 Singaporeans, which is why we are making this video saying that this is the authoritarian rule of law in Singapore.
Did the AGC really tell you that your husband should be paying for the other 5?
Yes, the AGC actually said that my family members should
I
have paid.
tell you this, I am shocked by that. I never knew that. And this is the first time I'm hearing. Why should the husband of Han Hui Hui be paying for the other 5?
Han Hui, why your husband always run away with the other 2 children? What are we doing life? There's so many things that we need to ask him, but he's not here.
If the AGC continue making me raise fund on behalf of the other 5 Singaporeans, whereby this is the authoritarian rule of law, then, you know, I'm afraid.
On what legal basis does the AGC suggest that your husband pay for the other 5?
Oh, because I stay in the house with my husband, and because we have joint accounts to fund my children's stuff.
Or maybe because you're very productive, 3 children in 4 years.
But if the
Okay.
AGC, no. If the AGC continues sending me letters, my marriage will end up like the law minister.
Hey, how many times you want to talk about? Okay.
Because it is the law agency that is sending me this letter. Why is the law agency sending me this letter? And the thing is, when I received the letter, I was 1 month postpartum. So with all the, 5 consecutive years of pregnancy, 6 consecutive years of lactating, and in the middle of the night I received the letter. So I was like, oh, okay. I don't want to end up like the law minister. So I'm trying my best to raise fund right now.
Okay. You are not alone in that you have very little CPF, because according to the latest CPF statistics, out of about 4.1 million total number of CPF members, about 1.3 million have less than $20,000. Tean, anything to say about that?
That is why I have always said that the CPF is a broken system. You cannot rely on the CPF for retirement. Alright? Look here. If a government is serious that you are able to lead a comfortable life in your golden years, why is it paying you an interest rate of 2.5%, which is well below inflation rate now? Alright? Ask yourself this question. Singaporeans should demand that this government play fair and pay them adequate interest on their CPF money. Otherwise, as I have said, every day your CPF money sits there, you are losing out.
And the internet brigade will say the CPF money is well invested in GIC and Temasek, and it is earning a lot of money. So the question now is, why is the government not giving us the return on the returns of our CPF? Why is the government not returning these returns that they have earned? Why are they not returning the money back to the people? 所以那些网兵就在那边讲说，政府投资了赚了很多钱。如果赚了很多钱，为什么我们公积金户口的利息才2.58%？李光耀如果活着是6.58%。所以这种男孩子，这种资政在做什么？那个钱到底是怎样花的？如果赚了，为什么这些钱没有还给人民？所以还我们公积金，不只是把我们公积金的钱还给我，是连本带利也要还给我。就好像这 AGC 已经讲了，他要5.68%的利息，那这样子你给人民的利息又是多少？你把这些利息吃进哪里了？如果这些利息给了人民，人民是不是会更早能够退休？为什么你不要把这些钱还给人民呢？
Han Hui, you didn't go university, then you study in this junior college that closed down already, right? What was your grade for mathematics?
The only thing I know how to count, right, is the amount of money the AGC is asking. But the amount of money that the AGC is asking is continuously increasing. Like now it's
韩冰冰，你可以废话少说吗？每次问你是讲废话的。OK。
You must understand in my estate if all the PAP MPs, then I every day have to watch them and listen to them, right? So my mind is, like the PAP, have been brainwashed,
Now you're talking about monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, because the government right now is trying to slaughter a monkey to scare the pigs.
Okay,
but I am very, very shocked. I tell you, the takeaway for me from this session is that the AGC can actually suggest that your husband go and pay for the other 5.
Anyway, Lim Tian, knowing Han Hui Hui, sometimes what she say is a bit like the newspaper subscription. Maybe, because, she, the school, all the graduates from this school, I think, don't listen very well. Okay, now listen to this statistic. You see, Han Hui Hui, you keep talking Mandarin, right? But I think a lot of people who watch this program maybe don't understand Mandarin. And how do I know? Because, look at this one. Information technology resident workers with degrees. Okay? 40,900 of the 87,700 earn their degrees outside Singapore. That means the majority of the IT workers earn their degrees outside Singapore. So unless they are Chinese, maybe they want that single word just saying, no? Tean, what does this indicate to you when for IT jobs, almost 41,000 out of 48,000 are people who earn their degrees outside Singapore?
I'm telling you, it is very obvious that most jobs in the IT sector are going to foreigners. The great majority, all right? And why do you think I am so against stupid treaties like SECA? Yes, it is a stupid treaty, all right? It is a treaty that disadvantages Singaporeans. IT jobs should be one of the most prized jobs in this new economy, the knowledge economy. I'm telling you, if I'm in government, I make sure that every Singaporean IT graduate has a job before a foreign IT graduate can get any job in Singapore. I'm telling you that. Why not? I will protect my own people. I will protect my own graduates. I have been reading stories of how Singapore IT graduates cannot get a job, now driving Grab. Let's have some common sense and some decency. A government is elected into power to look after its own people. Don't always come and give me the hogwash that we have to be open and that foreigners can take jobs over Singaporeans, all right? I refuse to accept that.
Han Hui Hui, you don't contribute to CPF, right?
These are questions that the AGC asked that I cannot answer.
You mean cannot answer a simple question whether you contribute to CPF? Okay, never mind, you refuse to answer, I also cannot do anything. Okay, Tean, since Han Hui refused to answer, I got to ask this question of you, right? The contributions to CPF a year, okay, according to the latest figures, right, is 44.7 billion. That means all the people who work, they contribute 44.7 billion to the CPF a year, okay? Now, then of course, people make withdrawals for all kinds of things. Withdraw when they retire, withdraw to pay for housing, withdraw, okay. The withdrawals is about 20 billion. So that means what?
You see, every year that means on CPF alone, the government is enjoying a net inflow of about 20 billion, right? Is that correct? About that.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
About that. All right? So, this doesn't only happen to CPF. I believe it also happens in the medical field, where Singaporeans' overall contribution to MediSave a year exceeds actually the outflow for medical expenses by the government. And yet we are told, we have to increase GST because of an aging population. Don't come and give me theoretical arguments, all right? You look at the pure empirical evidence. You tell me, how is government being in deficit as far as medical cost is concerned? And don't come and give me all the nonsensical argument, we are an aging population, we got to make sure that we have enough, money to take care of people in the old age. Look here, my friends. The PAP loves to make arguments like we got to have sufficient reserves because we owe it to our future generation. You know what is my argument? You are the government for the present generation, all right? You are failing in your duties mightily when you cannot even look after the present generation. And you have the audacity to come and tell me that you want to look after future generations. The future generations can look after themselves. They will do a much better job than you. So you just do your own job and look after the present generation.
But we can't have a future generation if Singaporeans are not really producing because housings are too expensive.
Okay lah, nobody can produce like you lah. Okay, three baby for you, right? Okay. Hui Hui, when you were studying, did you receive any bursaries?
Also, there is another thing. Is that, do you know that the government has this CDA account for the current generation of babies that are being born? So in this CDA account, the government has recently published a new propaganda and sent letters to all the parents just recently, like this week. Okay, so they have this assurance package, and they say that money are being given into the children's CDA as well as the CPF account. But this money inside this CDA account will actually be transferred into something like our EduSave or post-secondary school account. And this money after their secondary school will be then transferred into their CPF account. So all this money will eventually end up in their CPF. But of course, a lot of parents are saying that the money in this account, which the government is saying that this is under the baby bonus scheme where every child gets $3,000, this amount of money will actually be spent off after they spend their lives in the childcare. Because in Singapore, childcare in Singapore is about $2,000. And for those who manage to get subsidy, it will go low to about $800 a month. And giving $3,000 where it is $8,800 a month, they just spend it off within like the year itself. So this is why childcare and children and babies are expensive in Singapore. And not only that, the government publicized itself like we are taking care of the future generation. We give them this $1 top up if let's say they put money into this CD account. But this $1 doesn't apply on other money that the government actually put in. It only works if the parent put in additional new fund by themselves. And how much parents are actually putting in? When the policy first started out, the government boasted about it in the parliament. At that point of time, it was like around half the parents put in. After many years, then they can reach the full sum, which is just $3,000, whereby they can get the $3,000 from the government. And right now, the government is silent about this CDA $1 matching policy. Why is the government silent about it? Is it because a lot of families, after they have babies, they can't even afford this $3,000? They don't even have $3,000 cash in their bank.
You know, I want to add something to what Hui Hui has just said. My fellow Singaporeans, and I've said this many times, you know our TFR today stands at 1.12. You think about it, what a disastrous TFR rate we have. What disastrous government policies have, you know, made it this way. You know, over the decades, the PAP have continuously said, oh, we are going to give this bonus and all that to parents, hoping that they will produce. But it has been a complete failure. Complete failure. All right? Even Lee Kuan Yew was a complete failure on this. Let's not mince words about it. All right? Yeah? Why? Because over the decades, Singapore has become progressively more and more expensive. And young families, young couples do not dare to procreate because they are fearful that they cannot afford the expenses. And yet, every year we are importing all these foreigners in. Our society has been changed out of whack. You know what I would do if I am in charge? I will want to make sure that every Singaporean child is a treasure. I will treasure that child. I am not going to spend 250 million a year on scholarships for foreigners. Why should I? In fact, I will make sure that every Singaporean couple who has a child, that child will enjoy free childcare, education will be completely free, including university. And I will tell you, the TFR will improve dramatically. All right? This is how you improve TFR. Instead of listening to the Josephine Teos and the Indrani Rajas every day telling Singaporeans, oh, we are trying to promote, having more children. I'm telling you, Indrani Raja is now in charge of it. You mark my words. 3 years from now, 4 years from now, the TFR will be even lower. All right? You need 2.1, by the way, to even just reproduce yourself. 1.12, you are 100% off mark. All right?
Han Hui, after listening to Lim Tian, I just realized you are not just the self-proclaimed leader of the unvaccinated. You're also the complete success of, you know what? You are probably one of the most productive, mothers in Singapore. You got 3 out of 4. Right? The TFR only 1.1. But we have one big problem, Han Hui. In Cantonese, we have one saying, "Man fei so tap." Every time I ask you a question, you never answer. Ask you have bursary, never answer. Got CPF account, never answer. So anyway, we are approaching the end of the 4th live with Han Hui and Lim Tian. So the final question to Lim Tian, and this one, I must say, is really a very funny one. You see, Lim Tian, remember the 3rd live with the two of you? We talked about one university sending a letter to the alumni who donated money. Say, oh, thank you very much, because 1 in 3 students, right, are financially stretched. Okay, so on the 3rd of February, listen to this. The criteria for bursaries has been revised. It is more liberal now. Okay, the last revision was in 2018, 5 years ago. After the revision, about 78,500 students will benefit. Post-secondary students lah, right? So I'm curious lah. Wow, so many post-secondary students get bursary. That means so many poor students. So I started wondering how many of these 78,000 is compared to the total population, right? And anyway, I got the answer. 78,500 post-secondary students expected to receive bursaries, meaning they are poor, is estimated to be about 44% of the total post-secondary education. Tian, help the poor Singaporean. 4 out of 10 post-secondary.
You know something? This just illustrates once again, my friends, our wages, all right, are totally dysfunctional. Okay, it is disgraceful. And you know why? Because over the years, the government has opened the spigot, all right, encouraging low-wage foreign workers to come in. It is a race to the bottom, all right? And so Singaporean wages get depressed, yeah? And as a result, 35% of the working population take home less than 2,400 a month. Not only that, yes, you can give all these things to try and help poor students. Why don't you do something to help their parents earn better wages? All right? And by the way, Zihian, if I may say this, I have a member in PV who wanted to do a master's in engineering. Now, recently, according to her, the policies changed. And now it's actually more expensive for her to pursue a master's degree, and that is why she's unable to. In the knowledge economy, it is very important that as many of our students get higher education, get higher degrees. All right? And when you make it harder, more expensive for Singaporeans to complete higher degrees, a master's, even a PhD, you are just shooting yourselves in the foot. But of course, the PAP doesn't think that way. It thinks, oh, well, the Singaporeans can't do it. I can always go and import another foreigner to do the job, right? I ask you, is this the society you want to live in, you want your children to live in, and you want us to continue developing? I hope the answer is no.
Okay, Han Hui, we're going to end soon. Last words from you.
If the government can give money to foreigners, And if the AGC can choose not to charge the 6 people who are corrupted, and if the AGC can choose to continue this persistent and continuous political harassment, we will definitely be making the next video about the authoritarian rule of law in Singapore. And as for the trust in this current government, if your first wife doesn't even trust you, do you think Singaporeans should be trusting you? And if the mainstream media don't even trust their ability to have a positive circulation number, to be proud of their own circulation number that they have to inflate it, do you think that the people even trust themselves?
Lim Tean, final words.
Well, I will say this. I think the last 4 to 5 months have been very instructive because Singaporeans now realize don't trust anything the mainstream media tells you. Alright? Every day now, we are having scandal after scandal. Alright? FTX. 8 months due diligence. Couldn't even find out that that organization didn't have an accounting department. Had no board of directors, so to speak. And then, what did you have? You have the Keppel fiasco. You have SMT. Alright? And now you have Tin Pei Ling resurfacing again after 12 years. Alright? You know, my friends, don't think that this is going to stop. Let me guarantee you, as the year goes on, you are going to have more and more of this. And you know, the beautiful thing is that you cannot depend on the establishment to uncover all these scandals. SMT came about because insiders leaked the story to wake up Singapore. Otherwise, we would not be in the know, right? Yeah? And in fact, according to those insiders, the CEO of SMT was telling the staff, don't reveal this, all right? There was a limited town hall meeting. Yeah? So how can we trust the establishment for anything? And the beautiful thing, as I said at the start of this video, the Tin Pei Ling incident. Kudos to you, my fellow Singaporeans. You did a wonderful job. And you know, it is because of fearlessness and courageousness that our society will improve.
Thank you very much for watching the 4th live with Hui Hui and Lim Tean.
Thank you very much.
We always say, right? Put your comments below. We look forward to seeing again because from the feedback we are getting, of course, please put your comments, give your feedback to us.
And please, let me say this. Hui Hui needs help to clear this massive cost of 22,500 with the AGC.
About 25,000 now.
25,000 now. I ask you to be generous. This is a worthwhile cause. The 6 of them were incredibly courageous to bring up this suit. And now, as I have said, this is not just a Singapore matter. The issue has been exploding around the world. And in the coming months, you are going to see massive worldwide litigation over this vaccination issue.
Remember to like, comment and share. We will see you in the next video.
Thank you.
Goodbye.